because we are on a budget, okay? Make twice the amount for that price. It's about prices. Like if it's a few dollar difference, that adds up and that matters. I live in California, so it's very expensive here. We live in a 600 feet little home, and that's been really helpful for making those bigger purchases. I don't know about that though, we'll see. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, we are talking about how you can do homemaking on a budget, a one salary kind of home, because that's us. Obviously, if you're a homemaker, for the most part, you're probably staying home. One person is staying home and then one person is working, which can be a very hard financial situation. It is not easy. So I'm just here to share what we do. I have been asked to make this video by a few of you, and I thought it was a great idea, such a good idea. I am no financial advisor, so just keep that in mind. And if you're new, hello, my name is Noelle. I do all kinds of motherhood, homemaking, thrifting kind of content. We do a lot of baking from scratch, cooking from scratch, and that's basically my channel in a nutshell. I share a lot of real mom life stuff as well. And yeah, so let's go ahead and let's jump into this video. And I'm just gonna give you a little bit of my, not even advice, just what we do every month on a budget, because we are on a budget, okay? Like I'm not a huge budgeter, but these are just some things that I do to, you know, make sure we kind of stay afloat financially. I live in California, so it's very expensive here. We live in a 600 feet little home apartment kind of living. So we are a family of four. So I am always penny pinching when it comes to certain things. However, I do believe in spending money on certain things, good quality things. I like to shop as sustainably as possible, which is expensive, and just place my money in the right places where I think it could be used the best and our money can go the furthest. So here we are. Let's go ahead and let's jump into this video. So the first thing I really like to do is try to save 100 to 200 every month, and that could be challenging, okay? Because we have one check that's like rent check. My husband gets paid bi-weekly, so it is hard to stretch your money, but I try to save 100 to 200 every month, a little bit of money for rainy days. And you know, that 100, that 200 builds up every month if you are doing it consistently. So it's just about little savings here and there, because I know how hard it is if you do not have money to save. If you're making all the money and spending all the money you make, it is so difficult. So I try really hard just to put a little bit of that away if I can. It doesn't happen every month. Like I'm not gonna sit here and say it does, because it doesn't happen every single month. But I try my best to try to put a little bit away, so the next month it just keeps building up, and then we start having a little bit of a savings. And yeah, you're gonna have to make sacrifices in a lot of places maybe. By the way, my kids are in the room. They're always here. Tiny house living. That's just, you're gonna hear them, okay? So the first thing I do is just try to save a little bit of money. Like I said, it doesn't happen every time. I just do my best. 100 to 200 will build up over time. The next thing I really like to do is just plan out. I write down in my phone what I need to pay every month, like rent, bills, whatever the case is, groceries, and then I just kind of see if I have any extra money left over, and then that's usually what I'll save. Do the kids need clothes? Whatever the expenses are for that month, I just like to write them down every single month. And that seems like such common sense, but that's just what I need to do to keep things straight. So if you have some kind of financial planner, that would be great too. But I'm really simple with it, and I just write down in my notes like what I need to spend every month, and if I have money left over, then maybe I can do something else with it. But really taking the time to plan out what your expenses are is going to be really beneficial for your home. Just that way you just don't start just spending money everywhere, and you just kind of know what you need to spend, know what you don't need to spend, maybe save that for the next month if it's not something that's super necessary. That's what we do a lot of. We definitely do a lot of go without kind of situations. Like, do we really need this? We'll just go without it if it's not that big of a deal. Because like I said, we are on a pretty tight little budget, and I don't like to be over budgeting myself, like stressing, but I mean, it's hard when you only have one salary. Okay, so something else that is so helpful is saving a good amount of your tax return back. Now, if you have kids, you know that your tax return could be like fatty fat. Like it could be really big. And so I like to save as much of that as possible. So for this instance, like this year, my priority for my tax return is gonna be me getting my dental work done that I really need done, and just kind of catching up on some self-care with the dental area because it's so expensive. I do have insurance, but they don't cover that much when it comes to dental. So I'm going to be really prioritizing that this year. And then whatever else, I'm going to buy the kids some new clothes. Well, specifically Noah, because he's growing out of a lot of his stuff that he's had for the last few years. We always size up in our kids' clothing, which saves us a lot of money too. They grow into them, and Nola has a lot of hand-me-downs from Noah that are still really in good condition. So he needs some new clothes. So those are my 2 priorities for getting our tax return back. And then we're saving the rest to save up for maybe a new car or something else that we need. And that's really good for big purchases and rainy days, is just saving a good amount of your tax return and not just like being super excited that you have all this money now and you could spend it. Just save up those racks when you can, because big lump sums of money like that don't come very often throughout the year. So saving that tax return is really nice to do. The kids are playing Play Store in there, so they are like having so much fun. And they're loud. So another thing that I always have to remind myself too is not living beyond your means and trying to keep up with the Joneses. Just because you see somebody have this new item in a vlog or whatever, don't feel like you have to go out and buy that item. Like, if it's something I really want, I will sit on it for a long time and keep asking myself, do I really need it? Do I really want it? Also, I try to practice minimalism as best as possible. I'm not perfect. I still have things, but I like to keep my purchases pretty minimal and really to more what I need versus what I want. However, I do get some wants here and there for sure, because I'm a human being and we all have wants, right? But I try to justify every single purchase in my head and see if I really need that, and not try to keep up with the Joneses at all. Just don't live beyond your means. Just because so-and-so got a brand new car does not mean you need to go out and buy yourself the brand newest like Jeep or whatever mom car is hot at the moment. Like, just don't try to live beyond your means to keep up with the Joneses. Like, that is something that I feel like we all need to remind ourselves all the time, is that none of that stuff is important, and just live your life and within your means and not try to keep up with everybody else, especially on social media. Everyone is always flexing and living super absorbently on social media, and I just feel like that is not necessary and is not going to be helpful to your life at all. Okay, like, it's just not. So always keep that in mind, and I even remind myself that from time to time, that we are not trying to keep up with the Joneses here. We are trying to live my life and our life and no one else's. So something else that is really helpful is shopping smartly. I always do this every time I step out of the house. First of all, I like to thrift before I try to go to any small shop, so I like to always hit up those thrift stores before I go and shop online or to any big box store, just because if you can find it at the thrift store, it's going to be a lot cheaper. Like, a lot cheaper usually. So I always like to try to hit up those spots first before I just go out and make a bigger purchase somewhere else when I can find it cheap. Another thing that I do is going grocery shopping, as we all know, is very expensive nowadays, and I like to compare prices from store to store for like the basics, like milk, eggs, cheese, whatever I'm buying that I know I buy all the time, sugar. I like to compare the prices and see what's up between all the stores that I normally visit and frequent. This way I don't have to worry so much about prices. Like, if it's a few dollar difference, that adds up and that matters. At least on a small budget, that matters. So I like to shop at Trader Joe's. They are a lot cheaper than most places, which is a funny misconception, that though Trader Joe's is actually a lot cheaper than a lot of stores, which a lot of people don't realize. So that's really nice. So for instance, the milk is like $5 versus it was almost $10 for organic whole milk at my other store. So it's just like things like that make a huge difference. Flour, for instance, $4.99 at Trader Joe's versus $10.99 at my Save Mart. So I just really have to look and see. But Trader Joe's, I know a lot of people don't have it near their house, so that's a bummer. They're not like huge grocery store chains. They do have a lot of them out there, but you know, it's not that widespread, so a lot of people don't have them, but they are cheaper. So if you do have a Trader Joe's, I recommend going there, as well as Costco might be a better deal as well. And yeah, I just really like to do that from time to time because it's just cheaper, and wherever I can save money, I'm gonna save money, especially for organic food. We buy a lot of organic food and it's expensive, so whenever I can save some money, I will, especially on those basics like butter, flour, eggs, the things we use all the time from baking and cooking from scratch. I love to do that. It's very important. So I'm always comparing prices, and that's just what works best for me. And yeah, so definitely I recommend to start comparing prices from grocery store to grocery store. It just makes a big difference in the actual final outcome of what you spend on groceries. As well as you can buy in bulk too. Like I know they have Azure. I just don't have a space in my house to really store tons of flour and sugar and whole grains and stuff like that. Otherwise I would buy in bulk. That is probably so much better and saves you money. As well as I know a lot of people buy a half a cow or a half a pig or a whole cow or chickens from their local farmer. I know a lot of homestead people do that. I would love to do that. I just don't have the freezer space to store it, like a deep freezer or anything like that. That will save you a lot of money too if your family eats meat, is to buy in bulk from your local farmers. That way you know the meat is good. You get the best cuts of meat for the best price. So if you can do the local farmer thing, I highly recommend that versus going to the grocery store. You don't know what they're even putting in your food at the grocery stores. For a family of 4 eating, we also feed my mom and brother all the time, like almost every single night too. So for a family of 6, we try to do $160 for our grocery budget every week. So that's kind of what we do. Another thing is stretch meals. Stretch meals are a huge time saver and money saver. So you got to think of the meals that are going to last you long and not just those one night meals. I don't like one night meals because I don't have leftovers. And then that means I have to cook every night, which means more money. So I like the meals that are going to be cheaper, stretch further, as well as save you money. Like that's what you want. So I always do meals like that. That is a huge thing that we do, our stretch meals. That way you save money, don't have to cook as often, win-win, right? So a few of my favorite stretch meals would be like spaghetti, lasagna, shepherd's pie, tacos. Like you could do a whole bunch of taco meat and then make your tortillas or buy your tortillas. That's a good stretch meal. We make our own bread, so sandwiches are a good stretch. You just buy a whole bunch of meat and cheese or whatever. We do pizza as a stretch meal. We could do chicken noodle soup, all kinds of soups and beef stews and just stews. Those last a long time too. So we just do a lot of stretch meals. Highly recommend that. Saves you money and time. Something else that I love to do is when you're grocery shopping, I like to think of meals that you can use the same kind of ingredients for, like chicken noodle soup, you can use a lot of the same ingredients for chicken pot pie. Or if you're doing shepherd's pie, it's a lot of the same ingredients as beef stew. So I just kind of like to mix and match, buy a lot of the same ingredients. That way you don't have to worry about getting too many ingredients. You can usually find some kind of deal if you buy more of a certain ingredient. And that way you can make several meals out of the same ingredients and just kind of mix it up a little bit so you don't feel like you're eating the same thing all week, but you have a different variation of it and it's different flavors and good flavor profiles that are different from the last. So I love to do that too. I'm always looking at meals that I can make that are similar with the same ingredients but different at the same time, which is kind of challenging, but I like a challenge. And this really helps with saving money and being more prepared as a homemaker. And then you don't have to worry about like buying 100 ingredients. You could just buy a few and make a few different meals out of those same ingredients with adding a few different things to each one, you know? That's very helpful too. I was saying Costco, I know, is good for money saving. A lot of people talk about Costco, but we just don't have room for bulk for Costco. But if you know someone that has a Costco card, you can use their card if they let you. And also if you have the space, then buy in bulk from Costco. It'll save you a little bit of money there. It'll save you a little bit of money there, as well as I hear Costco's gas is pretty cheap if you have a membership. So, you know, that's always an option too. We don't do Costco just because I said we don't have the space, but maybe that's a good money saving tip too. That I know friends and family of ours does. That's why I wanted to mention it in this video, but maybe try it out. Maybe it's good. They say it's good, so. All right, so this is something that I do for bigger purchases. Like my kids, we like to buy organic clothing for my kids, which is pretty pricey from the Simple Folk and a few other shops. Now, some of those places take pay for 4 by PayPal. That is really good. I did this for Christmas a lot too in the past, where I would make payments on them. If you get paid bi-weekly, this is really helpful, so you don't have to just drop a whole bunch of money at one time on these items. You could do $20. I think it's $20 a week, depending on what you're buying. I'm just using $20 as an example. So if you're like buying something for $100, right? You could do $20 every 2 weeks until you can pay it off. And that's just really helpful to get those bigger and more expensive items over a little bit of time. And you don't have to wait till you pay it off. They'll ship it to you. But you want to be careful with this. If you have like no kind of good money management, then this wouldn't be good for you. If you have like hard time paying off your credit card, stuff like that, I wouldn't recommend doing PayPal pay for 4. Again, no financial advisor. I am just giving you information that we do, so don't take it like I'm gonna make you rich or something. Yeah, so I'm no financial advisor. I am just simply telling you guys what we do that makes our financial situation a little bit easier, a little bit more organized, and how we place our money. So I do like pay for four, but be careful with that. Make sure you're making your payments on time, or else you won't be able to do it, because that has happened to me before where I didn't make it exactly on time or whatever, and they were a little bit late. I mean, they give you a few days grace period, but then they won't let you do it anymore. So just be careful with that. Pay them on time when they say, so you don't have that problem, but they'll let you do it again if you let time pass. Anyways, I like to do the pay for four, and that's been really helpful for making those bigger purchases. And just want to make sure you just want to make sure you could pay them off over time though. So I think it's like a $300 limit, at least it was for me. You could buy stuff up to $300 and pay it off, but just keep in mind, the bigger the price of the items you're buying, the larger that payment will be every 2 weeks. And there's 4 payments that you get to make every 2 weeks. So that's what I, disclaimer with that one, because that one can get a little wild and crazy. They do a soft credit check, so just keep that in mind too. You kind of have to sort of apply very lightly. Something else that is a huge money saver, at least for us, is cooking from scratch. It does take a lot of time, but by cooking from scratch, you can make more of it. You do invest a lot of time, plus you know what's mainly in your food, all the ingredients, no additives, preservatives, so it's good in that way too if you're trying to be more non-toxic living. So I love that. We make a lot of our food from scratch. It does take a lot of time, like I said, but it's so worth it to me, and I do enjoy cooking and baking. So, I know it's not for everybody, and more people are about convenience, and that's okay too, but it saves us money. Like making our own bread, I can go to the store, buy all the ingredients for the bread, especially if you buy the things in bulk. It saves you money. You can make so much more of it. So buying a loaf of bread at the store is gonna cost you what, like $6 or so if you're buying decent bread at the store, even though it's still not really good. Has a lot of preservatives and crazy stuff in it. But if you make it from home, it's clean, and you can make twice the amount for that price. So I like to make things from scratch, and it's not always cheaper to do it from scratch though. I'm not going to sit here and say that, but at least you know what's going in your food, and certain items cooking from scratch is going to be better. Like if you were to buy like a pre-made Trader Joe's meal and you're a family of 4, it's going to be a lot cheaper to make it yourself than it would be to have the pre-made meal, and it's only going to last you 1 serving, and you can make twice as much for that price. So just, consider that. I like to do that as well when it comes to budgeting for our household. Okay, so another thing that is a small thing but does make a difference is buying whole foods instead of like already processed foods, meaning like apples that are already cut, and they're in that weird slimy juice, or carrots that are already shredded, or, well, I do that still sometimes depending on what I'm making. What else? Like, I don't know, potatoes that are already cut, or cheese that is already shredded. But yeah, so shredding your own cheese is really good for your wallet as well as for your health. This way you don't have this weird non-stick coating that they put on your cheese. Yeah, if you didn't know that, the cheese you're buying from the store that is already shredded, they put some weird kind of like non-stick coating on it, so that way it doesn't stick together and clump up. I would way rather have a few clumps than whatever chemical and non-stick thing they're putting on my cheese, like that's weird. It also makes it so when you're melting it in soups and just melting it in general, it doesn't melt right, or it doesn't melt all the way. I have experienced, and a lot of people have talked about this online, it just doesn't melt all the way. Like on food blogs and stuff, it's because of that weird non-stick coating. So if you've experienced that, that's probably why that's happening. So just shred your own cheese, pay the price for the block, and then shred it. You get way more for your money that way, and I just put it in a plastic bag, and that's it. And you can freeze cheese too, so if you have a deal, you could buy your cheese in bulk and freeze it. That works too. You can freeze cheese and it's perfectly fine. Another great thing that saves me from spending a lot of money, especially like eating out, is meal prepping. I said, making batch meals, but by doing that, I don't have to worry so much ever about, we eat out maybe about once a month, maybe twice a month. So by meal prepping this way, I just don't have to eat out, and we only eat out once or twice a month, and then we call it good. I like to meal prep early in the day. Like maybe I'll chop up just little things, like maybe chopping up some garlic ahead of time or chopping up onions. You can do that days ahead of time. Shredding cheese and cutting up potatoes ahead of time. Just things like that make your life a little bit easier for like days to come. I did that for Thanksgiving, and that was really helpful, and I just do that in general. Like I make one meal, have enough for the next day. That way if I'm lazy and just don't want to cook, like I already have it done. That way I just don't have to spend any more money and do like emergency takeout because I just wasn't prepared. It's really helpful. Buying timeless unisex clothing. Now my daughter does have dresses, so my son can't wear those, and she's smaller than he is, but we do save all the clothes just in case we ever decide to have any more. I don't know about that though, we'll see. Just buying timeless clothing, not trying to keep up with the trends with their clothes as well as my clothes. It just makes it so much easier, and then they never go out of style. Keeping it neutral, that saves me a lot of money in the long run because I can wear these clothes for years to come. I have clothes in my closet literally that I've had for like 4 to 5, 6, 7 years, even some from high school that are just like classic basic pieces, and saves you money in the long run. So by buying your clothes up front, it might be a little bit more expensive for these basic neutral pieces that are good quality and made out of good materials, but in the long run it'll save you money, so you don't have to keep rebuying clothes from Zara or Shein or Forever 21. Are they even still open? I don't know. Just it saves you money in the long run when they're good quality, and it is a more upfront cost, but it's an investment, and it'll, you know, they'll sustain you for a long period of time, which is what I like so much about good quality clothing. So I do invest in my clothing, but I do think it's worth it for the most part. And if there's something that you do get a hole, you can fix it, you know, like it's not that big of a deal, and it still will last you a long time if it's made out of good material and you keep up with it and maintain it and take good care of it. You know, it's worth it. It's better for the environment and the planet and all of that good stuff when you do that. So you're sending less clothes to the landfill by buying good quality clothing that's made out of good material. So I'm really passionate about that for so many different reasons, but it does save you money in the long run. Something I always do, which I've kind of put in my minimalist category video, was talking about when I go out, do I really need this item? Like, do I need this item? How is it gonna serve me? And do I really need it? This will save you a lot of money instead of making these impulse purchases. This way you just know if you really need it, where is it gonna go, why do I want it, what do I really need this for? That way you're not just spending a whole bunch of extra money on things you don't need. So always ask yourself, why do you need this, and is it actually a good? And my last thing is just don't get caught up in all the consumerism. I know being on social media, online, all these things, products are always being thrown at us in our faces, and it can be hard to say no sometimes, you know, but just not giving in to overconsumption and overbuying is just really, really good in the long run for our environment, for your wallet, for everything. Just don't give in to always the need, want kind of lifestyle. Just be happy and content with what you have, what the Lord gives you, and what you're able to afford. Just don't try to live too big for your means, and just don't do it. It's not worth it. Don't go into debt over trying to keep up with the Joneses. But these are the things that we do to make our financial situation just kind of work for us. It's not perfect. Do we struggle financially still? Yes, but I mean, these are the things that help and what we do. Again, no financial advisor. You guys asked, so I answered, and I hope this helps out somebody. I don't know. Hopefully it helps out some of you guys. And I will see you in the next one. Leave your favorite financial advice down below, or things you guys do that make your life a little bit easier when it comes to living on a 1-salary household. Even if you don't, even if you guys got the bag and you're living with a 2-salary household, let me know. Just what are your favorite tips that we can do to save money, as well as things you might want to start implementing. I'm just really curious to know. Anywho, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.